The second part of this idea that the history of the Bible stories are not reliable is that the authors of the Bible were not able to record history accurately due to failing memories, the lack of tools, and training in historical writing to get it right. Come on, folks, these were fishermen. These are shepherds. They're not trained on how to take notes in an interview, how to prepare a report that's not biased. They don't know what people today know about that. They didn't have digital tape recorders. They didn't have ways to record all this stuff. So they just weren't able to do all that. What is our response? A few things. First is that the biblical authors were able to record history accurately for a few reasons. First of all is that they were eyewitnesses to Jesus' life. This is amazing. It's almost as if Peter is anticipating this university argument 2,000 years ago. Look what he says in 1 Peter 1:16 in your notes. We did not follow cleverly invented stories when we told you about the power and coming of our Lord Jesus Christ, but we were eyewitnesses of his majesty. He says, come on, man, we saw it. Of course I remembered what happened. I was there. So they were eyewitnesses. The second thing is that they lived among eyewitnesses to Jesus' life. When Paul was writing about his experience, he said, Jesus appeared to Peter, then to John, and to the rest of the apostles, then appeared to me. And he appeared to more than 500 brethren, many of whom who are still alive today. So if this whole thing wasn't true, you had all these people who would say, yeah, I was there, it wasn't true. But it was just the opposite. You had all these other people who saw what happened. It'd be kind of like if I said something like, you know, remember back in 2009 when John McCain was president and we went to war with Antarctica and lost? You'd go, sorry, that's not what happened. You would say, no, he wasn't the president and we didn't go to war with Antarctica. And of course we would have beat those guys in Antarctica. Because you lived during this time, didn't you? They weren't able to check their stories. Lastly, is they had ways to record what they heard. This, I think, is amazing. I found this when I was reading the Christmas story to our kids a few years ago. This is talking about how John the Baptist, when his parents were going to dedicate him in the temple, and they're having a little debate over about what to call him, says on the 8th day they came to circumcise the child, and they were going to name him after his father Zechariah. But his mother spoke up and said, no, he is to be called John. They said to her, there is no one among your relatives who has that name. Then they made signs to his father to find out what he would like to name the child. He asked them for a writing tablet. And to everyone's astonishment, he wrote, his name is John. So here's a guy in an average home who's got something to write on, who knows how to write, who wants to write. Now, is it hard to believe that maybe at some point in time the disciples pulled aside and took some notes or wrote some outlines or something, and when it was time for them to put their gospel together, they took all their notes on cocktail napkins and little matchbook covers and scraps of paper and went down to the Starbucks in Jerusalem and laid it all out there and got a triple tall latte and just said, I'm going to put this gospel together. That's not hard for me to believe. These are smart people. They're not backwards country folk. They had the ability to do that. You know how I told you about the phone game? How the modern argument is the idea that the phone game, you tell one person, it just morphs and changes over time. Let me show you why that's not true, okay? And I want to use this movie. Has anybody ever seen this movie, Princess Bride? Yes. How many people really like this movie? Yeah. I mean, how many people love this movie? How many people might have an inordinate commitment to this movie and maybe it's a little bit out of kilter in their life? Thank you. I appreciate that honesty. Yeah. Oh, you're like, I don't know if I'm that weird. Thank you very much. Aren't there some great characters in this movie? Remember the clergyman? Marriage. That blessed arrangement. That dream within a dream. Marriage. What about Count Rugen? Remember he says, I've just sucked 1 year of your life away. Tell me, how did that make you feel? And remember, this is for posterity, so please be honest. Remember Prince Humperdinck? Tyrone, I love to watch you work. But on my country's 500th anniversary to plan, my wife to murder, and gilded a frame for it. I'm swamped. Remember him? What about Miracle Max? Remember Miracle Max, the miracle worker? Oh, you're right, Sonny. True love is one of the greatest things in the world. That and a nice MLT, a mutton lettuce tomato sandwich where the mutton is so lean and the tomato is so ripe. It's so perky. I love that. Remember that? What about Inigo Montoya? One day, I will walk up to the six-fingered man and say, hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. What about the mastermind of the whole thing? Remember Vizzini? So, all I have to do is divine what sort of person are you? Would you want the poison in your own cup or as far away from you as possible? You've beaten my giant, which means you're exceptionally strong, so thinking you can handle the poison in your own cup, I can clearly not choose a glass in front of you. But you've also bested my Spaniard, which means you've studied. And in studying, you must have learned that man is mortal, so not wanting the poison in your own cup, you'd want it as far away from you as possible, so I can clearly not choose a glass in front of me. Remember that? Remember when they got started at first, and they grabbed the princess, they put her in the boat, and they say, stop rhyming, I mean it. And he says, does anybody want a walnut? Peanut. Oh, I'm sorry, what? Peanut. Oh, does he want a peanut? Oh, okay. So I didn't say it right. Okay, did everybody see what just happened right there? Was I doing a pretty good job of entertaining you? Yes. I mean, not bad, huh? And this person had to correct me. I mean, that was pretty stinking rude, you know? I mean, I'm on a roll, I'm doing a pretty good job. If I had the guitar case open, you'd probably throw a couple of quarters in there or something. But she had the gall to stop me and say, that's wrong. And look what she did. She corrected me not on just a word. She corrected me on half of a word. I said walnut. She said peanut. Now, where is the story? Is she following along while I'm doing this in front of her? It's right here, isn't it? Because she remembers how the story goes. Now, as much as I love The Princess Bride, can you imagine people sitting around with the most sacred story of all time and letting somebody just butcher it and butcher it and butcher it and say, well, I guess that's your flavor. Every time someone said something that wasn't true, they stopped them, they corrected them, just like she did. And that's why the phone game doesn't work with the Bible. Because as they shared the story over and over and over, they always shared it correctly. Because there are people who were there, who lived it, who made sure that this sacred story and all of these sacred stories are going to get communicated accurately. So when it comes to the last guy to finally write it down, he wrote down exactly what the first guy said. Does that make sense? You see, that's why the Bible is historically accurate.